everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in January. I have all of them. Oh my gosh, it is a giant pile. I have all of them right here. I did not complete all of these books, but I have read pages from every single one of these books, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about them because January was probably one of the best reading months that I have ever had. I thoroughly enjoyed each and every book that I did read, and now I'm just thrilled because I get to talk to all of you about why I love them so much. So the first book that I finished in January, I started it late December of last year, and then I finished it early January of this year, is Iron Flame. And I don't have my physical copy of it yet because I ordered a special edition that's coming from Australia, and that is supposed to ship soon, so I'll finally have a print copy of it. But I did finish Iron Flame early January, and I did give that book 5 stars. If you didn't know, Iron Flame is part of a series. Book 1 is Fourth Wing, and then book 2 is Iron Flame, and then we are hoping that we will get the third one later this year. There were a lot of people who were disappointed in Iron Flame as opposed to Fourth Wing. I, however, was not one of those people. I did really enjoy it. I thought some parts of the book were a little bit slower and maybe drawn out a little bit more than they should have been, but also I just love the characters and I love that world so much that I was totally okay with the page count and with it being as long as it was. I don't want to spoil anything, but what I will say is with Iron Flame, I think we take a big deep dive into what is going to happen in future books. And I think that's why people maybe didn't enjoy this one as much as Fourth Wing, just because Fourth Wing was very action-packed. There was the enemies to lovers romance in it between Xaden and Violet. You are introduced to all of the dragons and just the entire world. And then the second book, it more so follows like the consequences of the things that happen in Fourth Wing, and it's difficult to talk about without spoiling the entire thing. But I do think that Iron Flame focused more on the relationships, the friendships, and sort of gave us like little Easter eggs and hints with the dragons about different things that are going to happen in future books. Overall, I would say that the book is really fun to read, and although I didn't particularly love the ending, I understand why it happened that way, and I think that specific ending is what is going to set up the entire series. Like, we needed something really big to happen that is going to push this series into being more than just kids going to dragon riding college. Like, it needed to be more than that, and I think that what happened at the end of book 2 is what is going to be kind of what explodes and makes the series what it's actually going to be about, like the actual plot of the entire story. For example, when you think of Harry Potter, like the entire Harry Potter series could not have just been about Harry Potter going to school, because each book would be like the same after the same after the same. Like, there would be no depth to it and it would get boring. The underlying theme of Harry Potter was him and his friends fighting Voldemort and finding the Horcruxes and doing all of that stuff to save the magical world. And that was sort of like this simmering plot that was just kind of there throughout the entire series. And I think what is going to happen with the Venin in Fourth Wing and Iron Flame is we were introduced to them obviously in Fourth Wing, and then they have a much bigger impact in Iron Flame. And I think kind of defeating them and the world resting on Violet's shoulders and all of that kind of thing, like that is just what's going to slowly build this entire series. So I don't know how they would move forward if what happened at the end of Iron Flame didn't happen. And I know that's probably so confusing if you haven't read the books, but if you have read the books, then you get what I mean. But I really did love Iron Flame, and it just made me that much more excited to continue the series. So after Iron Flame, I did read another fantasy book. I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and this book was actually my book club's pick for January. So if you didn't know, I have a book club, and we are going to read Archer's Voice for February. So if you are interested in joining my book club, it's on the app Fable, and I will put a link to it in the description box below and the pinned comment. Powerless is a young adult fantasy book, and it follows Peyton and Kai. Now, this is book 1. I think it's going to be a trilogy, and I know that book 2 comes out in July. I think this would be a really great intro to fantasy as a genre. Like, if you've never read fantasy before, I would highly recommend starting with a book like this because it was very intricate and beautifully written, and the magic system was really cool, but it wasn't so confusing to the point where you like feel stupid. Like it was pretty easy to understand. And this book was also very fast paced. It was a page turner. So there weren't really many moments of it where I was bored, although certain sections I thought were a little bit repetitive, which is why this book wasn't a full 5 stars for me. But overall, I did really enjoy it. It was very high stakes. And I will say too that this book had little to no spice in it at all. So if you are someone who does not like any sexually explicit material in your books, or if you are a teenage reader, then I would highly recommend this one for you. After Powerless, I read this book, Where Time Stands Still by N.S. Perkins, and this book got me, okay? This book made me cry a little bit at the end, and I was not expecting that at all. This book definitely gives Christmassy winter Hallmark vibes, but it has more depth and character to it, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't feel so like superficial and surface level. Like, you really get to know these characters and you really feel for them. So this book is a romance between Ren and Aaron, and how they meet is Aaron's father is in the middle of a medical malpractice case, and Ren ends up being their lawyer. And it is set on a Christmas tree farm, so you definitely get that beautiful wintry setting. I really enjoyed this book because it showed great character development and great character arc from both the female main character and male main character. This book was also only 283 pages, so it only took me a few days to read. It's one of those books where it's a really good palate cleanse in between, for example, really big fantasy books, and this is just a fun, easygoing, beautifully romantic book. The next book that I read was this one, The Fabric of Our Souls. And let me tell you, I do not have words for how beautiful, heartbreaking, and just jaw-dropping this book was. I ugly cried so hard at the end of this book. For any book to bring out that kind of emotion in me where you just feel that connected to the characters is going to get a 5-star rating from me. If you do decide to read this book, I would highly look at the content warnings page before you decide to go forward with it, just because there's a lot of really sad topics in this book, and there were scenes that were really hard to read that I just kind of had to put down, take a deep breath, and then get back to the book. But it was tragically beautiful. Like, I don't know what other words to use to describe this book. This book follows Wynn, Liam, and Lanston, who are the 3 main characters, and they are all in a rehabilitation center. The book focuses a lot around mental illness, which can be really hard to read about, but also I think reading books like this are also pretty important because it opens up your mind to the suffering that other people are going through. And by doing that, you can become a more compassionate, sympathetic, and understanding person. There is also a little bit of a mystery and thriller aspect to this book too, which just made the entire thing that much more intriguing. I have already ordered another book by this author because that is just how much this book touched me. And when I am mentally prepared for it, I'll probably start another one by her. But yeah, this book was, like I said, tragically beautiful. The next book that I started to read is this one. It is called Where We Belong by N.S. Perkins. Now, this is the sequel to this book, Where Time Stands Still. So this book follows Finn and Lexi, and we do meet Finn in this book, Where Time Stands Still. He's Aaron's best friend. We get a few cameos of him and etc., but we don't know a whole lot about him. Now, this book follows, like I said, Finn and Lexi. Finn is working at the Christmas tree farm, and Lexi is actually a gymnast who somehow winds up in Vermont at this gym that Finn's mother owns. So she starts training there. I got exactly 142 pages into this book before I decided to put it down. And I decided to put it down not because it was bad. I actually am thoroughly enjoying this book, and I especially love the gymnastics aspect to it because I was a gymnast for 17 years, and I've just never read a book where the main character is a gymnast, and so I just think that is so cool. But I was getting close to the time to where Crescent City 3 was gonna come out, and I was just getting FOMO. I wanted to start those books, and I just was losing interest in this book specifically because I could not get my mind off of the Crescent City characters. So I was like, you know what, I have to read the Crescent City books, and then maybe I can go back to finishing this one. So this one is not bad at all. Like, I actually really enjoy it so far, but I just wasn't quite in the mood to continue reading it. So I am temporarily putting that book down. And then the next book that I read and completed was the first Crescent City book. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive cover, so it doesn't have the actual title on it, but it's called Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. I am a huge Sarah J. Maas fan. If you guys cannot tell, I have a custom Stanley Cup that has all of the Sarah J. Maas character symbols on it. And I started my Sarah J. Maas book obsession with the ACOTAR series. So I think it was in 2021 or 2022, I can't remember, but I had COVID and I was just bedridden. I didn't have anything to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm stuck on the couch for a few weeks because I was really sick. I had the first version of COVID where you were down for the count for 2 weeks straight. I was like, so why don't I just try to dive into a series? And then I binge read the entire ACOTAR series while I was sick and immediately fell in love. Last year, I read the entire Throne of Glass series, which completely just stole my heart and took my breath away. And I don't know why I didn't immediately start Crescent City. But anyway, so this month I did start the Crescent City series, and I read both the first one and the second one. Book, you are introduced to the characters in the Crescent City world. You are introduced to Bryce. She is half fae, half human. And then in this book, you are also introduced to Hunt Athalar, who is an angel, which is so cool. So Crescent City follows all of these different characters in the world Midgard. That's the name of their world. Our world is called Earth, their world is called Midgard. And there's just a bunch of crazy different things that happen. And I feel like I can't even talk about it that much without spoiling the entire plot. But these books are just absolutely incredible. They're chunky, if you can't tell. They're really big books, but oh my gosh, are they just so good. In these books too, there are different houses. So there is, let me triple check so I don't get this wrong, but there's the House of Earth and Blood, which is this book, and then there's the House of Sky and Breath, which is this book. So the House of Earth and Blood holds shifters and human witches and animals, and the House of Sky and Breath, it holds angels and fae and elementals and different fire spirits and all of this kind of stuff, and it is just so cool. I think of the different houses as actually the different houses of Hogwarts. So for example, with Hogwarts, there's Slytherin and there's Ravenclaw and there's Gryffindor and etc. And Hufflepuff. I almost forgot Hufflepuff. So that's kind of these houses, you kind of swear allegiance to them, but they all live in Lunathion, which is the name of the city. So far, this is absolutely a 5-star series. What I will say about this series, though, is book 1 is definitely pretty hefty in terms of world building. It's not as confusing as people make it out to be, but there's just a lot of getting used to the world, learning the terminology, learning how things work in this world, etc. And then I would say that this book is much more romance heavy than the first book. Although there is romance in the first book, I think this one is much more romance heavy. And then I am currently reading the third book in the series, which was just released, and it is Crescent City, House of Flame and Shadow. And I don't want to give away too much about this book because it was just released, and I'm only about maybe close to halfway through this book. What I will say is this book is much more plot heavy than romance based, and I'm actually enjoying that a lot, and I'm having so much fun reading this. And personally, this is my favorite book out of the 3 so far. Without giving too much away, I will just say though that Crescent City, the second one, and this one are very interconnected with the ACOTAR series as well, which I just think is so cool how Sarah J. Maas is able to intertwine the worlds and the stories of 2 completely different sets of books. And I don't know how she does it. Her brain is brilliant, but I love it. So yeah, these 2 books I rated 5 stars, and since I am enjoying this one so much, I'm just assuming that it's going to be another 5-star read by the time I finish. Comment down below what books you read in January. I want to know. But with all of that said, I am going to conclude today's video. So if you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe because I would love to see you again in future videos. I hope that you all are having a fantastic day. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!